the doctor basically did a thorough examination with sonogram and told me that when they examined the fetal sac, there was no fetus inside. So his fear was that it was still inside me. So he was baffled by that. But he said, but you're okay. Just needed to make sure. But the thing is that he saw the fetus himself during my 3-month checkup. So this is why it baffled him.
Maria Cuccia. This is a story you're going to remember. It isn't the first time she's told it. The video of the talk show where she debuted her story is on her website back in the 90s. This is the first book she's written about it. His name is Elijah, and it gives more details. And finally, more people are talking about these kinds of experiences. With what you had to work with, dealing with being married, trying to decide how much to trust your husband, how to keep the kids intact, this was a tightrope.
Yes.
I don't know if anybody realizes how complicated. Here's something you're experiencing that is basically taboo. It does not exist. And a matter of fact, when your husband insisted you go to a psychiatrist, you got the dismissal of not even looking you in the eye when he said, okay, put her on some meds and that's it. See me in 6 months. And that was, you were no longer a person. You've been through an incredible war zone, coming through all of this intact and sticking to your truth. I am so impressed. I really have a lot of respect for you because what you did isn't easy.
Thank you.
It is not easy. And then on the book, you've got the picture of your son that you were told through telepathy, through contact, and through actually, being in contact with other beings, that this is your son, Elijah. How did this, for one thing, as a kid, you had it was a kind of an idyllic child life, playing in the yards and everything's all normal. All right. Mm-hmm. But there were a few things that happened that might have been interesting, like a missing time event when you were a young child. Let's start with that.
Yeah.
Let's start with that.
Sure. Yes. And it's really only clear, the story has only become clear literally about 5 years ago when my mother passed, and my daughters and I just drove to my childhood neighborhood. And I saw my old next-door neighbor was still living there in the same house. Her name is Joan, a woman in her 80s. And we were just so happy to see one another, crying over the passing of my mom and just reminiscing about those days, of childhood. It was so joyous, with all the kids on the block. So as we were leaving, my daughters and I got in the car, and Joan just suddenly blurted, "Remember when you were missing?" And I looked at her stunned, and I said, "What do you mean I was missing?" She said, "When you were a little girl, you were suddenly missing." She said, "You were at the bus stop. All the kids were there," because the bus stop was always in front of Joan's house. So we all gathered there, and she was the parent who watched us get on the bus. She said, "You were there? And then you were missing. You were gone." And I looked at her, I was like, I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, and so she's the one who made me realize as a child at a young age that I obviously experienced some missing time, because she said they were searching for me, my mother and her. And when my mother ran back into the house to call the police, the phone suddenly rang. And it was the neighbor all the way around the block. And she said that she saw me just in a daze with my school bag and lunchbox. And she said, what are you doing? Why are you here? How did you get here? And I basically said, "I'm looking for the school bus." So nobody understood how that happened. But it was one of those things that, was a childhood story that I never even really thought about until recent years.
That's incredible. And the thing is, well, how would you have known you were missing? Do you have any memory whatsoever of what happened?
So what I realized, again, recently, now that I'm doing my research and recounting, my life, basically, shortly after that experience, because I was 6 years old, I was going on through school bus in first grade. I had written a story in class where the teacher gave an assignment to the children to write a story based on experiences or memories or something. And most kids wrote about summer vacation or a trip or this or that. I wrote a story called The Funny Creatures. And it was a story that was just, I do remember the feeling I had when I was writing the story. I just was so excited to have to write about something. And I describe in the story that I was walking on that same block. I described meeting a scientist. And I drew a picture of a scientist. And in the story, I'm expressing that the scientist is telling me I could go to an unknown planet, but I would have to take a test. So I described myself taking a test and being told I passed the test and that I would travel to an unknown planet. I drew a picture of a planet which kind of looked like the moon with craters. And I drew myself inside a crater. And then I drew funny-looking creatures. So I described in my story that I was inside a crater and I met funny creatures and I had fun with them, basically, until they told me I had to return back to Earth. So the teacher, I do remember this. She was just saying, that's an amazing story, but you're very creative.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was a little baffled because it was really supposed to be about something real.
Mm-hmm.
She said, you have a very vivid imagination. So those are basically the earliest memories.
I love that. I love that because I think in the book you said, now next time, make it something more personal.
Yes. I know the face, the look on her face, like it's still to this day.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. She knew she had a child who was going to be a handful.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Well, and okay, so the book is called His Name is Elijah. And so
yes.
there is a picture on the cover. And this is what people, when they talk about, okay, there might be hybrids and they're walking among us. And Ingo Swann actually says he ran into some. And there's some other people who say that they have had this feeling that some of the people that they have dealt with may not be of Earth. And of course, that's all something that's still considered fringe territory. But there are enough stories, especially when Bud Hopkins came out with the book Intruders. And that's when you said basically you felt like you finally had a way to give grounding of some sort to your own experience. So let's talk about that too, because up until that point, it was one of these touch and go things of you were almost going to be committed because of your unstable mental state. But here comes Bud Hopkins when you saw the show. Let's go from there.
Yes. It was 1992, several months after the experience, and I could not let go of it. I was shown this boy. This boy the image of him was vivid in my mind. I could not let go. And it caused problems in my marriage. And not only my marriage, friends, because I changed. The experience wasn't just like something that lasted for a few hours or a few days or even a few weeks. It drastically affected me. I couldn't let go of this. Something happened. So it reached a point where my husband insisted, you need to see a psychiatrist. You have to go to a psychiatrist. And, at that point, I realized, okay, I do need professional help, because I couldn't let go of it. So I would say I started to weaken a bit, but I always prayed. I prayed for clarity. What is this? Dear God, help me. I know.
Yeah.
I was fearing going to the psychiatrist. And I was literally in the kitchen. The TV was on, and a trailer came on, flashed on the TV. It was a movie trailer of a CBS miniseries called Intruders that was based on the book written by Bud Hopkins And it basically said, based on true stories. And I became curious. So this is just a couple of days before my appointment with the psychiatrist. I watched the series. It was 2 parts, 2 nights. And Wendy, I felt like it was my story airing on TV. And that's when it hit me. How could these women have the same exact delusion as I had?
Yeah.
Because you have to understand, prior to being shown the boy, approximately 8 years prior, I was 3 months pregnant. I had gone for my ultrasound checkup. The fetus was, forming beautifully. The heartbeat was so strong that the doctor even commented on, oh, you must be having a boy. That's a heck of a strong heartbeat. It was a wonderful experience. And it was my second, I had already given birth to my first daughter. So I was really happy that everything was going well. And it was just 2 days later that I just collapsed to the ground in severe pain. I needed to be rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. And when the doctor examined me, he basically said I had passed the fetal sac. And he said, I'm sorry to tell you, you had a miscarriage. I was upset, but he did what he had to do. And he eventually discharged me. I went home, went to sleep that night. And the next morning, I was having breakfast and I received a phone call. And I was told that the doctor wanted me to get down to radiology immediately. He needed to examine me again. I was so baffled, but I was told, just, you need to go there right now. And I had to rush over there, not knowing what was happening. And the doctor basically did a thorough examination with sonogram and told me that when they examined the fetal sac, there was no fetus inside. So his fear was that it was still inside me. So he was baffled by that. But he said, but you're okay, just needed to make sure. But the thing is that he saw the fetus himself during my 3-month checkup. So this is why it baffled him. So now, again, that's my story. I was watching Intruders by, as we said earlier, based on Bud Hopkins' book, and it was women who were 3 months pregnant. The fetus was confirmed, and suddenly the fetus is missing. And these women, like me, had experiences years later where they have a similar encounter where they're shown a child and told the child is theirs.
Yeah, see, that's mind-boggling because, for one thing, that is not our reality.
Right.
And there's another thing, too, though, that earlier in your marriage, your relationship, you felt that there had been somebody, I think was on your honeymoon, and you felt there was somebody in the room with you. Have you ever reconciled or come to terms with what that might have been?
That was so hard for me to write about, and I have not spoken about that yet. This will be the first time I'm actually speaking about it. The night of our honeymoon, we were in Bermuda, and we were making love, my husband and I, and suddenly I just saw what looked like a man standing at the foot of our bed. And it frightened me so much that I literally pushed my husband off, and he fell to the ground. And I was screaming, someone's here, someone's here. And I jumped out of bed and I was searching because it was so visual for me.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, a man standing at the foot of the bed. And that was really the beginning of a whirlwind. So much that happened.
And to me, that's a mediumistic experience rather than an ET alien. Didn't have the robes. I've had them at the foot of the bed with the robes, the tall beings with robes. And they had a clipboard. And then when they said she's awake and disappeared, I was like, what? They're taking notes about me? I want to know.
That's very interesting. See, this is why I'm happy to speak with you. I'm curious about your own experiences.
Well, and that was in the early 90s. Okay. And I had the book that I got, Whitley Strieber's book. And I'm thinking, And eventually I got rid of the book. I thought, I really don't need this in my house because it's a bad influence.
That's how I felt.
It's making friends, okay?
Yes.
That's how I thought.
Yes.
I just thought, no, and it was, I mean, knowing that was my sense at the time, that I went through my books and saying, okay, this one, intuitively trying to select which one was going to be helpful and which one was not so much, and eliminated that one for sure. But okay, so to me that is because you also have some more, as you talk about in the book, experiences with the deceased. And what happens with us a lot of times when we become aware of this other influence, ET, interdimensional, whatever, then it tracks back to you were already intuitive. You were already sensitive. You just didn't know it. And you didn't know how to categorize it, or even how to recognize it. And that's where it gets confusing, because you have to know the difference between them to be able to start integrating your experience and knowing what it is you're actually doing and who you're connecting to, because it's a big field of consciousness with all these different elements that we are challenged to admit are changing the way we think about our reality. And that's happening right now. Finally, it's only been 70 years since,
I know. It's finally happening.
So with the ET experience for sure, but the other stuff's been with us for eons. And that's what I wanted to get into with you too, because with your own experiences now and having been able to stay with your family, because a lot of times that's what goes south, is the family just, dissolves, and you stuck with your husband, and there were challenges, and that's in the book. It's like, oh my gosh. Okay, we're not going to go there. All right. But at the same time, your daughters were part of this, and and that's solid. And that's a testament to how dedicated and grounded you kept your situation.
Yes, but they were also having their own experiences. And as children, they were telling me stories, and I would always just, listen and not say to them, oh, you just imagine that. Oh, that was the dream, So for them, they were having real experiences as well. And that also confirmed for me that it wasn't just a mental disorder on my part. Something was taking place. But again, I gave them more freedom to express what they were experiencing. Some were very frightening for them as children, and I didn't want to dismiss any of it. I think we all need to face our fears and gain strength from it rather than run away from it.
Now that they are adults, have you all had like a group meeting to compare your experiences? And I'm sure all of you are still in some way being contacted and monitored.
Oh, it's my daughters who have encouraged me to actually start speaking about this because of the wonderful conversations we have with one another. Because again, that's what this is all about. Just sharing, just talking. Everybody's story matters. And we should just reach a comfort zone of talking about this. Otherwise, it could cause health issues.
Well, for some people, in their communities, they're ostracized and they're shamed and they're told, "Go away." Because they threaten the consensus view. That's where it's challenging, because then you have to find, well, where do I fit in? And then not going off the deep end of a cult or something like that. Finding where is my tribe. Who talks about this, that I don't have to join a group. I can just get some information and find out, okay, does this click? Is this in sync? And your information is so incredibly helpful because you've been there long enough to have met some of the, like Barbara Lamb and
Yes.
Bud Hopkins. And then that was when Whitley Strieber was first talking about this, and he was a horror writer, and people were thinking, well, he must be crazy. He must be making it up. It must be, a good book. And then decades later, when Whitley is still active and saying it's changed and transcended, and yes, you do involve the deceased. That's part of it, thanks to his wife participating and keeping him grounded. It's an amazing time to be able to come forward and share stories like this. And that's why, when I'm reading, as soon as I got the memo, the message on your book, I'm like, slam dunk. Yes, because you've experienced it, not just the experience, but having to bring it somehow to a grounded way in your life, day to day, working, teaching piano, being a gifted pianist. There's a story in there where I think you played piano, and that was one of the things where this was a group of guys who were not necessarily considered to be safe to be around in the first place. They had And so,
biker guys.
Yes, tell that experience, because that was like, oh my gosh, and you didn't lock your door.
Yes, I think, but that shows my personality. We were in college. I was in a co-ed dorm. Back then, everybody, in college, you have it's kind of like a whole party where everybody comes out of their rooms, hangs out in the hallway, drinking beer, blasting music, laughing, joking. So we were all doing that, hanging out. And then all of a sudden, everybody starts going into their rooms and slamming their doors. And the guys across the hall from me, Maria, get in your room, shut the door. And they locked their door. And I just stood there saying, what's happening?
Yeah.
I didn't react. I was curious, what's going on here? And I looked down the hall. There was this group of guys. I mean, so classic biker guys, with their leather vests and chains dangling from their waist. And the only one out in the hallway was me. So I became their target. I was like, oops.
A volunteer. Look. Yeah. Oh, gosh.
And they came and they stormed into my room. And I was like, oh, what do I do? There's like 6 of them. And one of the guys saw my stack of music, because I majored in piano in college at the time. And he was checking out my music and literally making fun of it. It was classical. I was a classically trained pianist. So he's like Beethoven, Bach, this and that. And then all of a sudden he sees my Led Zeppelin music. And he's like, oh, check this out, Led Zeppelin. And he goes, you play this? I play piano. So he literally grabbed my arm and dragged me down to the lobby, the dorm lobby. We had a piano there. And he just puts the music down and commands me, like, play this piece. I'm like, oh, shit, it's like, and
no pressure.
Nervous.
No pressure at all.
No pressure. I'm nervous. And I was always like, please, dear God, Holy Spirit, help me, give me strength. But it was one of my favorite pieces to play. It was my warm-up piece before really diving into my classical piece. So I started playing it, and I just became in tune with the music, forgot about, the guys that were surrounding me. And little by little, it drew a crowd, and I got into it. And all of a sudden, a friend of mine pops in with his guitar, and he's jamming. It became a jam session. And when I was done, I looked, and half the guys fell asleep. I mean, it was so funny that I was laughing because these big guys who were threatening. I mean, there were stories of them stabbing people. Later on, I found out all these stories about them, but they turned into little, gentle souls. And the guy who told me to play, he's like, Maria, that was great. Thank you so much. I said, yeah, you got to wake up your guys. And we laughed together. So it was just something that really affected me at that time because music,
Yeah. Yeah.
later on, years and years later, I got into Tai Chi, and I just said, it's so true. If we stop trying to block negative energy and just let it come in and gently work with it and transform it and send it back out, it's a beautiful experience. And that's what I felt happened.
Yeah.
That day. The energy shifted. It shifted. Everybody else flew into their rooms, slammed their doors, locked their doors, and were frightened. But I was more curious, and it was an experience I talk about all the time because it's one of those life experiences that just stands out in your mind.
Well, what is it? Angels go where wise men fear to tread, something like that. There are stories written about that kind of experience where music calms the savage beast, and in all of us. And so there was something though about the ETs that they told you that guidance that you get off and on and throughout your life, where you needed to be aware of interesting sounds, unusual sounds that didn't make sense. And I think that's part of what you put into. And let's segue for a moment into the music that you have included. This is on a YouTube channel that you are writing with Elijah.
Yes. So once again, I was classically trained. I played piano, and I never really composed music. But during the experience, I was told, to listen, that I would be hearing music. So once I stopped seeking help, and, I dealt with the psychiatrist, and I saw these movies that no answers are given. The only thing I knew is that, okay, something's going on. I'm not sure what it is, but I turned inward. I really focused on prayer and meditation. And once I started doing that on a daily basis, I started to hear sound. It was sound, vibration, but it was unusual. It was so beautiful, so incredible, so different. And I actually saw numbers flashing as I'm hearing sounds. So I, of course, knew and know music theory. So I was seeing tones and tritones and threes and sixes. So I felt so inspired to get a keyboard at the time. And this is back in the early 90s, where synthesizers were just new in the music industry. So I got a keyboard and would meditate, focus on what I was hearing, and then try to mimic that sound on the keyboard. And that started that's actually book 2 that I'm working on now.
Excellent. Okay.
But book 2 will begin with the music that I created. So, as you said, some of it is posted on YouTube because many people are asking about it. Mm-hmm. But that's what I just started. And again, it was new at the time. Now you see music for meditation and healing all over the place. But I was kind of new, one of the first ones to start recording that type of music. And I always felt it was Elijah. I always called on Elijah to communicate with me. And that's really what I was hearing. It was like he was channeling music to me. And then, of course, the words, music is the universal language, came to me because this is all in my journal entries. And that was the way of communicating in a universal way. So it's about sound and vibration that causes an emotional reaction. So that's what I started to do.
Oh, it's super powerful. And the other thing, too, is that we don't usually check into the way certain sounds are impacting us, influencing us, like songs you listen to on the radio or a construction worker nearby, lawnmowers, just everyday sounds that can actually be a source of disturbance if you are sensitive to that kind of thing. So this is,
Yes.
I think it's a crucial element. I believe it changes us. It changes us in our fabric of our being and our biology when we listen to certain sounds and frequencies. And obviously when you put the boys to sleep, hey, that's like a standout testimonial.
100%.
You know,
They came in attack mode and they left like little boys.
yeah,
You know,
it defragged. All of a sudden, they're like in the zone again. Okay, all right, all the anger's been diminished. Okay, so what the other thing though that I found very, very fascinating, your ETs, and I'm just gonna, aliens, ETs. I don't really think we have a name for this yet. I do not
agree.
think. Yeah, I think we are still kind of on the fringe with what we are dealing with. They told you, yeah, we got the one at 3 months, and the other ETs got the one at 6 weeks. What? What?
You picked up on that.
Oh,
Not
well,
everybody really realizes that.
Oh, yeah,
Very
that's
good,
huge.
Wendy. Again, that's something internal with me in my mind. Like I said, there's so much. So for the listeners to know, I actually did become pregnant before that 3-month pregnancy. I was pregnant again. Now, the strange thing with that pregnancy, I was only 6 weeks pregnant, but it was confirmed by the doctor. But I had gone to sleep. My husband and I had gone to bed, and then there was this loud crash. We didn't know what happened, and he ran instantly down the stairs and out the door to check on it. And I had a child, like I said, I had already given birth, and she was in the nursery in her crib next to my bedroom. But my body froze. It literally froze, and I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't move my legs. It was strange. I was just like, I got to get out of bed. My daughter started crying. I didn't know if the house was collapsing. I didn't know what happened. And for a few moments, I just don't know exactly what happened. Again, this is years later when you do your research. This is a common theme that sometimes people just feel this, their body just freezes and they can't move. Eventually, and I always call on Jesus. I say my prayers, to give me strength, help me get out of this situation. I eventually got out of bed, took care of my daughter. It turned out that a car had hit a telephone pole situated on the corner of our property by our house, and the entire telephone pole fell on our front lawn. And there were ambulances and whatnot. 1 week later, I miscarried. So I asked the doctor, could it have been, I told him at that time, I wasn't thinking UFOs or abductions or anything like that. I said to the doctor, could that frightening episode have caused the miscarriage? And he said, we have no way of knowing. So that was a miscarriage that I never really thought about it because it was 6 weeks. And then, he said, you're perfectly healthy. You'll be able to get pregnant again, which I did. And then that was that second pregnancy that I spoke of earlier, where I was 3 months and then the fetus was missing. So now, like you just said, I wrote about it because everything was in my journals and I had dates. And it wasn't until I started writing this book that I start to question, what did that message mean? Because my experience with Elijah, it was beautiful. It wasn't frightening. It was upsetting, of course, but I didn't feel a negative energy when I was shown the child, when I saw the boy. It was more of a beautiful experience. Other people have had more negative experience. So I don't know if that 6-month loss had anything to do with that.
Okay. And my thing is, it was a distraction for that. Yeah, the 6 weeks. Yeah, it was a distraction, and you were basically immobilized. So there was a moment there where you may have had lost time. You might have had a blank out moment of not really being aware fully of what's going on because, for one thing, you're shielded. Right. That seemed like the opportune moment to do an extraction. So You put it that
I
way.
know. Again,
It's just the fact that you journaled it and that it was documented. You were pregnant, so the whole night it's all present. The other thing, though, on the ship, what did you feel about the environment? What was the sensation like being there? Because I think that's what people are very curious about in that state of complete and total alien environment. What was that like?
all I remember is like control panels and like this big ship with a large glass window. And beyond that glass window is where something was taking place, because I recall a large group of children, and just one child was brought forth by what looked like a woman. She brought him closer to the window, the space where I was, and we just locked eyes, the child and I. So I do not have detailed memory.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I did, but
no, I understand.
As time goes on and the more I speak about it, it's almost like having amnesia, and you start getting flashes again,
yes.
After all these years. So that is starting to happen with me, but the thing that is most vivid of these three non-human beings, or what appeared to be non-human beings, wearing hooded robes, long hooded robes, and I remember light around their faces. I do not remember details. The only facial feature that was more detailed for me was the boy, because I was really staring at him the most and just hearing telepathic messages from the beings next to me.
Well, in the picture that you put on the cover of the book shows he's humanoid.
Yes, that's how, again, that's my memory.
Mm-hmm.
That's in my conscious memory.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing I think is interesting is, from trying to suss out the details that we don't even know since it's in another room, and we don't know if you're fully physical or in between, right, whether there's air, and that would be why it would prevent us and them having a contact on a regular, like here in front of my living room on a day-to-day basis, because they are not the same as us. They may have some of our characteristics, some of our DNA, some of that, but it doesn't mean that we are equal. And not only that, how our time works, a whole lot of questions. But that's what the whole thing is about, is you start talking about this and we start getting creative and imagining, what might this be like and what else going on, and who took the 6 week? That's the missing link right there. And will that connect us? You were given a task. You were given a mission. And this is what they make fun of. I was chosen. And you are special. Okay, that's one of my favorite Aliens, People of Earth, is the series that I thought was brilliant, because it put in all these little teeny tiny bits and pieces of actual ET experiences. And you are special. And it's like, well, okay, we all want to be special, all right? So we got that down.
No.
Not sure if we want to be chosen. That is the chosen. Yeah, the chosen is like, wait. I'm not in for that. Okay, because you don't know what you're signing up for, and you're chosen. So, but I like that. We needed to do, this is what hit me, because I was given by 3 men in black. I could not see their faces. They all wore hats, like fedora type hats and black coats, and came up in a black car in a dream where I was quite aware of what was happening and what I was being told. And they said, we need you to do what you agreed to do when you came here. And somehow I knew what that was. And apparently I'm doing it, but I don't have a conscious memory of what my program is. But I just thought, and then you, with your book, you say, and you can put it in your words.
I'm so glad you shared that. Once again, we're just getting to know each other, and I'm more curious about your experiences and what you just described with the men in black with fedoras. My middle daughter has memories similar. of men like that. So I'm kind of zoned in on that right now, wanting to ask you a question.
They weren't mean. They just meant business. It was like they were dressed in black, like a long coat, a 3/4 length coat. And I'm in the middle of a field looking at the moon with other guys that might be in cowboy boots. And they're over there talking the distance. And I don't really want to be with that group. But I'm out in the pasture, and here comes this big black car driving through the pasture, and 3 men get out. Very official. Only one speaks. The other 2 are like, sidekicks. And I don't remember have an image of the face. The hats covered the shadow there, but it was also telepathic and it was important. And I knew, okay, I had completed a certain task that had to be done within a certain time, and that had been completed. And I knew exactly what that was, because when a dream ended, I changed my life 180. And so I knew that was part of it. And it was like, okay, quit monkeying around and get down to business.
Wow.
So, and this is part of that. This is part of that. It's connecting people and sharing the information and saying, everybody has their own reason for being. They have their own beliefs. They have their own life. And that's the way it should be. But in order to do that, we each have to come to terms with our own sense of, why am I here? What is my purpose? And there's challenges. And so it doesn't mean if you don't remember, you're not doing it. That's the whole thing about it, is that sometimes we do it without knowing. And that was also part of the message, is that right place, right time. And then ask, okay, so why am I here for this one? Why do I have to play the piano for these guys? Okay, fine, I'll play Led Zeppelin. We'll get over it.
Exactly. But again, we're getting into the second, like I said, the second book is more about that. So basically, I was told I had to record music. I'd hear music. It was really coming from Elijah, and then I was just kind of a vessel, putting the music out there for him. But with everything you just said, you just sparked a memory from me. So I felt, okay, I'll do this. And at first I was like, I don't know how to record. And they did say to me, we'll send people to you.
Yeah.
And people started entering my life, and they helped me with learning how to record and this and that. So I'm starting to post some of this music now, because many people are asking about it. But the fact that you said, we kind of know it. It is like, we had agreed to do this and we're doing it. I felt that, okay, if I record this music, I'll get to see Elijah again. Mm-hmm. I will actually get to see him, so let me do this. And like you said, your whole life changes. All of a sudden, I went from just having a piano to having a studio in my home filled with keyboards and recording equipment. I was learning and buying, all kinds of things to learn how to record music, to work with producers, and spending money. It cost me a lot of money to do.
The cloud opens up and the pennies fall out. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget one day that something happened. I mean, I have so many stories to tell, but it basically got me so upset and angry. And I'm not doing this. This doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
I'm being used and, yelling into the void, like, leave me alone. Just leave me alone. Mm-hmm. And shortly after that, I had an experience where there was a man in the bedroom again. Uh-huh. And, you described the notepad, I think you said, or something, an experience that you had. But to me, it looked like, and there were no laptops at the time, but it seemed like a man, what I would now call a laptop. And I'm saying, tell me what I'm supposed to do. Just tell me. And he was saying, you're not doing what we want you to do. I remember it was like a very electronic voice.
Yes.
You're not doing what we want you, right?
Yes.
And I said, well, just tell me. Make it clear. Just tell me. And the next thing I remember is hearing what sounded like a cassette tape on fast forward. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember.
Yes.
It's like this thing sounds, which today I would think of like it was like a download or something.
Yeah.
So it wasn't clear.
It's in there.
It's never clear, but we do things in life, and look at what I'm doing now. I mean, does this make sense? I'm not.
Okay.
So.
And then for me,
I don't know.
the way that might happen is if they told you to do it literally, we would then confine it and say, well, I need to go to somebody who's going to help me to do this. I'll pay them $80 an hour to help me write this and blah, blah, blah. Instead, since you have no clue and you have no blueprint, you just have an idea, you have to get creative on your own terms, how it comes out through you. And, well, maybe I can put this in my studio. And then somebody else says, well, here I have a piano. Maybe you'll need, and I have a keyboard. I don't need it. All of a sudden things start showing up, and you never would have done that if you had been told you're going to do this. Right. So that's free will. So we have an idea of what might be possible and what we can do. Whether we will do it is still up to us. And I've had my 3-year-old moments of I look stupid. I'm not doing it. And they said, you have to look stupid. Get over it. Well, because eventually you look like you know something, but you have to do you have to do the groveling and the idiot part first. So you get through idiot 101 into, I think I might know something. You never really know it all. That's the whole point. No matter what, because there's always more to know. And that's the carrot. There's always more to know. And that's why when you're saying, I'm on book 2, yay! It didn't stop. It opened. And
it did.
I think that's what I think people are afraid of. It's like, it's going to confine me. It will minimize me. I will be taken over. It's like, no. That's, or at least in my experience, when people start going through these changes, they evolve. And other things happen, and you have other experiences that make it even more phenomenal, that there's no end to it. But you have to allow that you're going to change in ways that you can't predict. And the people around you will change in ways that you can't predict. And that is life, period.
Yes. Beautiful.
From your experience, if someone came to you now and said that they were also, because there are going to be people, they're already approaching you saying, this sounds really familiar, and how do I handle it? And the psychiatrist is helpful, but the meds, when you went through that had to be the most soul-crushing, debilitating. I liked your response. We just wasted $350. You idiot.
Right.
I loved it.
So true.
I loved it.
True. Everything in that book is my truth. That's why I didn't want someone else to write it or someone else to publish it again. Here I go again, spending time. But it's so true. I mean, he was just an idiot because, oh my God, but I gave in. My husband, we are divorced now, but we stayed together for 30 years, but we had a very friendly, easy divorce once our kids were grown. Everybody says, oh, he was awful. Why did you stay? He just wanted, when we met, we were two people, a certain way. And for a while I did suppress it and I wasn't doing anything. And then it was like 3 years later, again, something came on TV and it was a show called The Other Side. And it was Dr. Will Miller and who hosted the show. I used to like to watch it. And then they said, if you or anyone has had an abduction experience and is trying to tell loved ones and they don't believe you, call this number. I just instantly called the number without thinking. It's like, oh, they're talking to me. But again, I was silent for several years with all the experiences because I was trying, like you said, keep my marriage together and
your kids and your family,
and my children and family, my parents, my brothers, cousins.
There's a lot on the line.
To make of it.
Yes.
Yeah. So you leave a voicemail with these things, and then I did get a call a couple of days later from the producers, and they said, we would love to fly you to California and have you share your story, but we want your husband to come also. We want to hear his side of the story. So I thought, you know what? This will be good for us Let's do this. Plus, it's a free trip to go.
Yeah. What's not to like?
Why
Yeah.
not? He said, "What are you, crazy?" He said, you look at all you went through. You're finally grounded. Why do you want to stir this up again?" I said, "Because I know something's going on, and let me share my story," because I appreciated Dr. Will Miller, because he, like you, would, get people to talk about experiences with just letting them be free to express themselves. So he didn't want to go at first, mainly because of concern for me. He said, people are going to really think you've lost it, why would you want to go there again? I said, but you could express yourself. I said, and I'm open to listening to what people think about this, and I think this is a good show. And Dr. Will Miller is wonderful. He's an ordained minister and psychologist. So I thought it was a great platform. So finally he agreed, and we were flown out there, and he had the opportunity. That's why I posted that segment on my website, because he basically expressed, he said, "I don't believe my wife was abducted, but there are a lot of people who do share her experience." So basically he said, "It just scares the hell out of me." And those were the key words. And that's why to this day, when people ask me, he didn't support you, he didn't do this, why did you stay with him? No, because I respected him out of, I understood that I changed. I had a drastic change. I was not the woman he married. I understood that he just wanted me back. He hasn't fully read the book yet. He's aware of the book because, of course, he has to be aware of this. He's remarried. He married someone who's just the kind of wife that he wanted.
Right.
And
right. Normal.
But exactly. So, but I said to him, listen, so he's realizing, he said, he still can't let go of this. I said, no. You asked me earlier about the spaceship seeing the children. Was it on another planet? Was it actually a spaceship? I don't know. No. So I think a part of me wants to believe the children that I saw then are now adults here on Earth. And maybe there will be a reunion for those of us who had this type of experience.
It would give closure.
Yes.
Depending on what their lifespan is. We have no clue, but we're getting a glimpse. And I think that's why it takes so long, because of the reaction within the consensus reality of this is frightening.
Right.
This can't happen because it upsets everything that we have decided is true.
Right. Yes.
And so that's where we're crossing that bridge into so many people are having these experiences and coming forward. Denial doesn't work anymore. And it's there, but it's difficult to throw it out. And that's what happens right now with finally saying, yes, UFOs are real. We know about it. And here are the cases, global cases, not just, in Arizona.
Correct.
That whole thing, or New Mexico, that it has opened up conversation. Our consciousness is changing. We're no longer lockstep, ice cold, fearful, hiding under a rug or in a closet saying this can't exist, go away. Because it doesn't matter if we don't believe or we do believe. If it's real, it's real. And it's not going to go away. So learning how to consciously consider that fact is a paradigm shift. Because before, that wouldn't even have been possible. Does that make sense?
Yes. Oh, 100%. I agree with you.
And your book, I love the fact that you did put an image of the being that you saw. And this is your reality. So you have to be authentic with, you can't prove it. You don't have to prove it. You're just telling your story. And this is what it looks like. So somebody else may go, oh my gosh, mine looked like that too. Or mine was that 6-week one. Okay, so it doesn't look like that at all.
Yeah. and that is what's happening now.
Yeah.
And again, I started this really during COVID. That's when my mother had passed, and then COVID broke out. It was a whirlwind of events for everyone, But for me, I just said, if I have to isolate, I'm going to isolate in sunshine. I literally purged everything that I had on Long Island and just came out to Florida in an apartment. The one thing I brought was a big bin of journal entries. And I said, it was really like a time for me to do a life review. And I really just started writing for my own healing purposes. Then eventually, the disclosure started happening. And then I start receiving phone calls, this is what you said years ago was going to happen, And so I said, okay, there's a reason why I'm writing this now. And step one is it was for me. Step two, it was for my daughters so that they knew the full story. Because, again, they were little where their father, there were some arguments where we had, and he was calling me psychotic and calling me a schizophrenic. And, it got very close to him having me put in a straitjacket, and so this affected the children, of course. These are memories that they had. Is mom crazy? So I wanted it for them. And then I realized, no, I think I have to go a step further and just share this.
Yeah.
And, like you said earlier, the more we talk, people like you, like me, those who have stories, their stories matter. And the more we talk about it, maybe we will get to the bottom of this eventually.
I think there's a lot of healing. You're very gentle with your husband, even though you guys went through some real trying and very human, normal kinds of relationship challenges. The how can I trust you? Are you honest, dishonest? All this stuff. That's all emotions. And that's all physical stuff of how do we deal with our own relationships. And navigating that is part of being human. And also saying that there's some point you have to say, let bygones be bygones. And when we do that, then we elevate the whole situation, not just yourself, himself, but your children, your family. Everybody has a piece of that puzzle. It's all unique. We don't all have the same piece. But in terms of coming to terms with it and saying, this is my reality. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm saying this is what I went through. And that, I think, is a gift. I think that gives other people a template for, you don't have to be angry at the world for not getting it or for not being loyal or not understanding. Yeah. You have to be able to say, that was then and this is now. Where am I now? And this is how I got here. This how you are a much stronger person and more confident in your own beliefs, having gone through I did it for somebody else and now I'm doing it for me. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that was trusting. I also think if you had done anything different, then you might not have been able to keep your kids. That's reality. And that would have been heartbreaking. Okay. For everybody, So the choices you made were those that were good for you at the time that you made them. And so that's why I'm thinking this is a very real story. It's a true life. And I'm so glad that you didn't have somebody else try and make it pretty.
I know.
Or more dramatic, more dramatic.
More dramatic. Because there were a few people in the beginning that wanted to work with me, but they're turning it into horror, for their own reasons. And
let's punch it up. They're going to get bored. There's none of blood, guts, and gore and fright, and like a jump scare. There's at least 2 or 3 jump scares. It's like, no, come on. That's the thing with Hollywood. I love the fact that you saw the Steven Spielberg when you were looking at Close Encounters and talking about having a family moment, and the music. That's the whole thing of that's like a little hidden gem. That's a clue. Yeah. When you follow the clues, you see, oh my gosh, here's another one. And he connects a lot of dots. I
can't wait to see what he's coming out with.
Yes.
When is it? In June, I think. I'm curious about that one.
He has more to work with now that more stories have come out. It's little incremental pieces of the puzzle. And again, I think that's because we're only able to integrate some of this piece by piece. Maybe some better than others and others not at all. But I think that's part of it. We are evolving And this is a big leap from point A to point B to saying, and here they are, they've been on the moon the entire time. They've been watching you. And this is a guy who was in your bedroom. And guess what? You have 5 kids with him. Okay, that'd be kind of hard. That'd be kind of hard to handle.
No, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Like, is this possible? Is that possible? Because again, based on research, other stories, it just makes you wonder.
Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of a reality crack right there. So right now is a learning curve, and I'm so glad you're talking. I'm glad you're sharing your story. I'm looking forward to the music that you come up with, because you do have a beautiful concept of what you want to put out that's very soothing. And so when you decide to do Led Zeppelin again, I'm sure you'll bounce over into the pop realm.
I know.
Maybe, the new age alien rock phase. How's that?
Oh, it's so funny that you said that, because when I was recording music, and as I said, people were coming into my life, and I did collaborate with other musicians on a lot of pieces. But there was a man, I don't know how familiar you are with Long Island and Montauk. Basically, Stranger Things is based on actual stories that occurred in Montauk, which is we could do a whole nother.
Yeah, Montauk has always had an aura.
Yes, but that's also where supposedly the children were being taken and experimented on with their mental telepathy and music. So there was a gentleman named Michael Luckman back in the day, because he knew of my music, knew of my experiences, and he was putting together a book called Alien Rock. And you just said that, So it's a book of musicians, very famous musicians, from Elvis Presley, Michael Jackson. It's a whole book of musicians, even John Lennon, of course, who expressed experiences and where their music, the inspiration of the music came, and their paranormal experiences, and he put it together. And he included a chapter, which I was surprised, but about me as well in his book. And I supported him, and he even gave thanks to me. And but the book is very interesting, because, like you said earlier, it's just, there's definite power in music and vibration, and it could be used for good or evil purposes. And my messages came, like I said, music theory made sense to me. The book too will get more into the details of it, explain the power behind music and how it works and how it affects us.
What is that book? You said Alien Rock?
Yeah, Alien Rock, the Rock and Roll Extraterrestrial Connection by Michael Luckman.
With this new book, I know you are still connected. You're still getting telepathic contact. And I like the way you explain it when you're saying it's not like a voice, it's like it's there. And that's exactly how it works. I call it, mine is channeling. The language is just there. You don't know what's going to come out. You just start writing and you start talking or whatever. And it makes, when I first started doing it, I thought nothing would make sense. And then I would read it after I did it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this actually it actually follows a hook. It tracks. And I was afraid when I started doing it, because you just start talking, you have no idea what's going to come out or what it's about. You just ask for, I ask for it to be for the highest good. And that will direct it, and only the positive for the highest good, and then go from there. But it's one of those things where everybody hears it differently. And that when you said the mechanical voice, you betcha that's there too. And when they try to connect, they said, we don't want to scare you, but I can see you. I'm okay. I won't be afraid. Yeah, right. I think they know what they're talking about. I honestly do. So I've had a few experiences where, they kind of prove their point. But at the same time, knowing that there's an effort, and it's in our best interest to try the best that we can to learn more.
Yeah.
Wherever it takes us, we need to be open to learning. And that's what listening is about. Listening is about believing and learning and paying attention and hearing the fine notes, which you're doing. Absolutely. Okay. So your YouTube channel is linked from your website, mariacuccia.com.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
book available on Amazon. His
Yes.
his name is Elijah.
His name is Elijah. Yes.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
I just thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, Wendy. And it's just, I just think everyone should know that their story matters. And I respect what you're doing. Beautiful.
Thank you. Well, we have to talk. That's just all there is to it. The more we learn, the more we grow, and the more fun.
Yes,
exactly. I do not want that guy in my bedroom, okay? But I have a feeling, I've had a feeling, there are others like him, and no matter what we say, we're going to have to deal with it. So we'll deal with it, and we'll think, let's
They're observing. It's all about, I know, if we look at it as they're observing, but it would be nice to get some feedback.
I know. Was that a 10 or a 7?
Exactly. So anyway. Listen, the key thing also is the energy behind the laughter, Wendy. I love laughing with you because you have to at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's not going away. But the joy,
going away.
It attracts the right kind of being. Okay, if you want to attract something, share your joy. Okay, I will put links in the description for the show and link your website and play a bit of the music as well. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. It's really enjoyable.
Maria's website, mariacuccia.com. Her music is available there, also on YouTube. And as you heard, she's including a backstory about the music in the next book. This is the 6-minute meditation. It's called Maris, a performance meditation. So we're going to listen to that. And again, just part of it. I like the instructions she includes. Imagine yourself submerged underwater, encountering the struggle of finding the light above when it feels like you're drowning. In such moments, concentrate on exhaling a consistent stream of bubbles and attentively follow their direction. This technique can effectively transform tension and fear into focused energy for enhanced performance. Again, that's a piece called Maris for Performance Meditation. Available on YouTube. Maria Cuccia, read the book. It's unforgettable. Thanks for listening.
I think a part of me wants to believe the children that I saw then are now adults here on Earth, and maybe there will be a reunion for those of us who had this type of experience.